So it's great to see we have a lot of people from the region, all across Europe and Central Asia. It's really great to have you with us here today. So thank you for joining our Boost Talks. I'm Svetla Baiva. I am the communications lead with the innovation unit at UNDP Europe and Central Asia. And today you'll be joining Boost Talks, our webinar series that explores different aspects of innovation for accelerating the Sustainable Development Goals. And this is organized by Boost, a UNDP-led acceleration program for social impact in Europe and Central Asia, but also beyond the region. And of course, Boost wouldn't be possible without our wonderful partners at Koch Holding and the Slovak Ministry of Finance. And I think my colleagues can drop possibly the website, our website, Boost Impact, so you can get a sense of what we're doing with the program. And so today we're really excited because we're kicking off our second edition of Boost Talks. It's a special session, and we're kicking off with a webinar on the power of innovation, open innovation to drive social impact and sustainable development. And with us today, we have, we're really thrilled to have with us Pinar Köse Kulacz, who currently is the Innovation Director at Arçelik, a multinational manufacturer. And she's going to be exploring what open innovation means and the potential of working in this way and using this approach. Pinar is also going to share some of the ways that they practice open innovation at Arçelik, as well as some of the behind the scenes of their innovative practices, for example, including how they harness data and AI and any other kind of emerging technologies. So just to let you know, we're already recording this session, and we're going to be sharing this recording afterwards to all of you that have taken part, and will also be published on our website at boostimpact.org. We're also going to have a Q&A session at the end. You'll get to be able to ask all sorts of questions to Pinar about what she's doing, what Arçelik is doing, about open innovation in general. So if you have any questions while she's presenting, please feel free just to directly drop them in the Q&A box. And in the end, we're going to summarize them and go over your questions. So thank you very much, Pinar, first of all, for joining us. And without further ado, I'd like to hand over the word to you.
Thank you so much, Svetla. And hello, everyone. Hello from Istanbul. And I have seen that somebody was writing rainy, sunny Istanbul. I think that was Rick. Well, at the moment, it's pretty sunny outside, which makes me smile because I really love sunshine. I would be spending my time with you on talking about open innovation, about Arçelik a little bit and some of the practices, and I would be really happy to answer your questions along those lines or anything that comes to your mind that you believe I might have an answer to. Without further ado, of course, I have a set of boring slides which guide me a little bit, so I think it's a lot easier to talk over slides, but we will for sure make sure that it's more of a chat at the end. Than just a mere presentation to you. All right, so I'll be sharing my screen, and if you see the screen, please give me a sign, all right? So it would be nice to see at least some reaction. Okay, now I think I'm sharing my screen. I hope that you can see that. I see some people nodding. Thank you so much, Svetla. I have come down with COVID after 2.5 years, keeping safe and free from it. So my voice is not in the best form, so I may be coughing every now and then. Apologies up front. Let's start.
No, the first slide is showing, yeah.
Wonderful. So I just want to start with a few examples. These are real. So before I start talking about what we do in Arçelik and what I do in Arçelik and what my team does in Arçelik, I would like to first start off with a few real examples of open innovation. Number one is it was right before the pandemic. We have the yearly Consumer Electronics Fair. That's the largest consumer electronics fair in Europe. That's called IFA in Berlin. In Berlin, we have launched new technology on dealing with plastic waste. And we are really obsessed with this, so you can just believe me. There was a lot of R&D going on behind it. And our R&D teams had come up with a patented technology that we call the fiber catcher at the moment. This is a really little device and a very straightforward mechanical technology that can, with a filter, of course, very special membrane, that can actually filter out the microplastics that we do have in our clothes. And you know how much of that goes to the oceans? We don't want that to happen. And this technology, patented, has been opened for public use. We actually told everybody during IFA in the launch of this technology so that, hey, yes, we do have the patent, but it's open to everybody. Just make it your own. So that was the very first real example for a call for open innovation. So we really did not want to just keep it to ourselves. And I will come to the story later on. So what happened? Nobody used it. And we'll talk about that as well during this session. Next is a program that's all the time ongoing that we call the Patent Scouting Program. We have noticed that there are a lot of startups or small deep tech companies who have already patents, or some academics who have patents, some inventors who don't have companies who have patents. They don't know what to do with it, but we know that some of them have something to do with our business. So we have an always on program that is for scouting patents. So we are open. Anybody can submit their situation, and we have a look at it and we analyze it together with our experts, and we do something about it. We have seen some good examples here. So that is a program that is working well. It's been tested and it's still ongoing. Another example was the very first Hack to Normal. Hack to Normal series are some open innovation ideathons that we kicked off during COVID. And I must say that that was an occasional thing when it was first kicked off. As you can see from the dates, it was mid-May 2020. So we were in the middle of really making a sense of the new normal. So we just thought this is not something we can figure out on our own. We really felt helpless. Most of us did. I'm sure you also did as well. We just thought, why not make an open call and get smart people together and challenge them to come up with ways to deal with the new normal. So this was more about COVID-19 and how to define the new normal and find good solutions around it. And I call it the minimum viable product of the very first Hack to Normal, because we really were running in the dark. We didn't know anything like that before. It was more like, let's try it out and see if that works. And we got really amazing response. So we had a lot of applicants, pretty cool ideas, and some of them are still alive. Not many, but some of them are still alive, and I'm sure they're creating impact somewhere. The second one, we just thought, okay, so we had to go somewhere where we can create bigger impacts. And continentally, Africa is a geography where you can create very large impact with very little touch. So, and we do have a good presence in Africa. So we thought, why not try Africa as a second one? So the second Hack to Normal, we kicked off in Africa, and we called it From Africa for Africa. And we were hoping to create some good innovations around sustainable living, healthy living, and financial solutions, which were the three areas where we thought needed a boost in impact. And this was not the easiest one, because Africa is very large and it's actually pretty different in multiple locations. Despite the challenges, we pulled off a pretty good ideathon, all in all, and had a lot of participation. And there, I think the biggest learning we had was NGOs make a very, very big difference in this sort of initiatives. So we got a lot of support from multiple NGOs in Africa. And last but not least, so this was the most recent hackathon, and I believe this was the most impactful, because I think we also learned some lessons along the way. So this was the most recent, again, on the theme of sustainability. That was the very first carbon neutral hackathon we held very recently in Europe. Even though we called it a European hackathon, the applicants were from all around the world. So we were actually pretty surprised. We got applications from like 70 countries. So we just also know that there is no boundary to innovation. So geographies are not binding us anymore. And I think ideas flourish anywhere in the world. So this was a very strong learning as well. About this one, I will give you further information in the coming phases as well. Another open innovation initiative that we kicked off very recently is on 5G. 5G, as you know, I used to be a telecoms person. I'll tell you more about this in the coming minutes. 5G is a communication platform. So I can't find a better word, because 5G is just the technology that enables us to have less delay, more bandwidth, and that's it. That's honestly it. So you have just the difference of modulation technology on the base stations. You have more powerful core networks, and that's about it. So telecoms vendors are actually running around like headless chickens and trying to explain people why we have 5G. And recently they have discovered the power of open innovation themselves, because they know that what makes 5G special is not the technology itself, what it enables. So, but in order to figure out what it enables, you need to collaborate to figure out what it enables. So that's why recently for the startups that are in Turkey who can actually enable a lot of interesting use cases with the help of 5G platforms, we have kicked off an acceleration and commercialization program, and we joined forces with multiple stakeholders. Together with us, there is Nokia, there's Turkish Telecom, there is a funding organization that is in Turkey, the Ministry of Technology and Industry is part of it. So this way you can actually leverage, again, I'm going to use the word boost because it's so beautiful and in line. This way we will boost the impact of 5G with coming up with the right use cases and implementing them and bringing them to life. And this will also have an impact on the local economy over here, and it will boost startups. They will give them some other channels for commerce. These are just very few examples of what we can do, but hey, this is not all. What I believe very strongly is we can definitely boost impact with open innovation. There are some pitfalls that we should not fall into, but let's see what we can do. By the way, this is myself wearing an Oculus. I love my new Oculus, so this is not just a game. I love the metaverse, but the life is out there and it's open to everybody. So let me first give you a little bit information about myself. So what makes me eligible to talk to you now? So my name is Pinar, and Pinar actually means the source of water, and I believe in being like the water, like Bruce Lee says, because water is fluid and it can go into any form. It can collaborate. It can fill up its space, and I think it's very much in line with innovation itself. So myself, I've been on the field since 1998. I graduated from university as a computer engineer in 1998. Well, I'm proud to say I was a good student always, and school was never a problem. But I was more interested in coming up with new things and starting my own business and yes, making an impact. So after graduating, I of course carried on with my master's study. While doing master's, I was teaching at a university. Very quickly, I figured that I'm not an academician. I'm not going to be a very good academician, even though I liked my time there. Then I very quickly jumped back to corporate life after being a software engineer for a while. I lived in Finland, Helsinki for quite a lot of time with some gaps. So I was there for a while, but it was not sunny enough. So I left, got back to Turkey. Then I spent some time. I started my own business back in the year 2005. I was into e-commerce. E-commerce was very new back then, so nobody knew anything about it. And I established an e-commerce company. We were not called startups in the day. We were called little software companies. And so I was very proud to have implemented the front end and back end, and established all my value chain, found my stakeholders to buy from and sell to. But then, honestly, I was a hardcore engineer. I knew nothing about business. Really, I knew nothing about business. I was just an engineer, and really proudly having implemented everything at the software level. Pretty cool, very sturdy. It worked, but I really didn't know how to sell. I had no idea how to market. Back then, there was no Google Ads. Google was just coming up. And there was Yahoo, and I was buying ads from Yahoo, and I really thought I was spending a hell of money. I really didn't know that I had to put down money for advertising in order to sell. So long story short, I thought that I had to do some MBA, because being an engineer is not going to help me. So if you want to run a business, you need to understand business. So I started my MBA, and during my MBA, I actually majored in e-business. So I took a lot of classes in e-business, e-banking, e-commerce, all sorts of E. So anything starting with E, I had to learn, I told myself. That helped. So the e-commerce business I was running, it was working. I was not earning a lot of money, but it was working. So I didn't know of anyone, so I did not need to raise funds here and there. But once my MBA was over, I was rehired by Nokia, and because they told me that, hey, look, you have a business, we know. Are you earning much money? I said, not really. And then I said, okay, so you want to hire me? And they said, yes, we look for someone who is crazy enough to run a regional job and wear multiple hats, because you have to do a technology job and business job. And now you know something about business, we hope. So I was rehired by Nokia Networks, and I worked in a regional job as a solution manager and a solution architect. So I was looking into all of the core network and designing core networks for large telecoms companies. And at the same time, I was trying to sell them. So that was really tough work, but I liked it. So that was just for me. For a while, I did that job, but then I've seen a very large merger. So Nokia and Siemens merged in the year 2007. And there were new opportunities for me, because I was very interested in seeing how things transform into new things. So they told me that there's a transformation office. You want to come to the headquarters? So I flew back into sunless Finland, and in the year 2007, and I stayed there for quite a long time. In total, I lived 11 years in Finland, and for a long time, I acted as a business advisor, sitting in the transformation office, connecting the two worlds. And on top of that, my love for starting my own business never died. Once I became a mom, I took a break from corporate life, and of course, yes, I went back to work after a while when my kid was old enough to go to daycare. But the world in corporate world did not speak to me anymore. It was very different. The company I left was Nokia Siemens Networks. The company I returned to was Nokia Networks. The Siemens part was gone, and everything had changed. That was totally new. And they told me if I wanted to have a severance package and leave, because that was just like a little lottery ticket. That happens in large companies every now and then. And I wanted to start my own business, and I said, sure, let me do that. So I took the severance package, and it was like getting funded, and without really working hard. And I started an HR analytics company based in Finland. I worked really hard. I found pretty good customers, and that was doing pretty fine for a while. But B2B business, scaling a B2B business was pretty demanding, and I really couldn't find the right funds. So I started going from project to project, and my projects were in this geography where I live nowadays in Istanbul. So I thought that, okay, I moved back to Istanbul for business reasons. I finished my projects, and I got back to corporate life because I really wanted to have a startup, but I couldn't get funded. So this is roughly my story. So why I talk about innovation, startups, going after businesses, etc. And ever since I joined Arçelik, I had held several roles. So I was I started as heading the IoT program, Internet of Things, which was something I knew because I come from telecoms. And my job was basically to make sure that our washing machines and refrigerators got connected to the internet. Why? Well, that was my job to figure out. And the next step was to actually start off a digital transformation program, a much larger one. So we established a digital transformation office in the company, looked into a larger portfolio of what we can do next. And afterwards, the data and AI have become more commodity. So we thought that we can actually scale it within the company. So I established the data and AI department. And right when my mission over there was over, I took on the innovation function. So at the moment, I'm managing the innovation function in the company. And I have a wonderful team of people sitting in Istanbul, in Ankara, and in Taiwan. So we have pretty cool tasks at hand. So we have actually two jobs. One is to make sure that our company stays innovative, keeps doing incremental innovation and disruptive innovation, both for our core business and adjacent businesses. And on top of that, another task, and that's a gigantic undertaking, is that we are trying to spin off new ideas. So we always keep looking into our assets and come up with new business model innovations. And our job is to make sure that at least a few of them we can spin off from the company. So I told you my story because now I want you to understand that I really love my job. And looking at my life story, this is the job that fits me really well. So at the moment, I'm like in seventh heaven doing this job at Arçelik. So let me give you a little bit extra information regarding Arçelik. So Arçelik is a multinational company, as Svetla mentioned. We are a global player, and we work, produce, and innovate. And this is what we love repeating. So we work, produce, and innovate. So that is what we stand for. So we have 12 brands, 28 production facilities, and more than 40,000 employees around the world. We have quite a number of R&D and design centers. So a lot of patents come out every year. And we are sitting in 74 sales offices, subsidiaries in 49 countries, so to say. The production network is global as well, so a good number of them are based in Turkey, but we are present in Romania, in South Africa, and India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Thailand, China, and Russia, with different brands. And I will come to that one. So our leading brands are Beko, Grundig, and Arçelik. Arçelik is the love brand in Turkey, so everybody knows about that. And I'm sure that every Turkish person has an Arçelik brand home appliance at home. Grundig is a full-range home appliances brand with the legacy of this German brand, Grundig, that used to be a consumer electronics and audio brand in the past only. At the moment, it has a full range of home appliances. And Beko is one of the leading home appliances brands in Europe. You might have heard about this one as well. Additionally, we have a number of side brands that we have acquired, like the Arctic. Arctic is like Arçelik of Romania. Like DeFi is like Arçelik of South Africa, for example. And we hold pretty good positions in Europe with our leading brands. So just to give you an idea, for example, in the UK, we're usually in top 3, in Spain likewise, in France and Poland, and with DeFi, we're most of the time #1 player in the markets. And I'm saying this because this is not easy to stay always in top 3. So that comes with its challenges as well. So our most recent motto has been act together now. So we know that the world is changing and very quickly. So we have been on a sustainability journey for over a very long time. So we know that maximizing profits is not the game anymore. Optimizing profits is the game. And when we are looking into our business, we always look at the 3 P's, so at least in the innovation function, that's what we want to call. We look at the people, profit, and planet. So we need to do things for the people. We need to do things, of course, in order to earn profit because we are a for-profit business, but also we cannot forget about the planet anymore. So our motto recently has been Act Together Now. And that's also linking to open innovation as well, because we cannot do things on our own anymore. In short, at Arçelik, we would like to say that we embrace end-to-end digital transformation, and we really embrace design thinking principles. We do innovation at Agile, and we use Industry 4.0 approaches in most of our plants and in our day-to-day operations and in production. So just to give you a few examples, so I'm now slowly talking about open innovation. Technology has been advancing extremely fast. And if you look at the course of the technological advancement in the most recent years, the fourth industrial revolution, it has accelerated the advancements 10 times. And we really don't know how fast it's going to advance in the coming 10 years. In the coming 10 years, according to Peter Diamandis, who I really highly respect, he's the co-founder of Singularity University, he has been claiming that we will experience more progress than in the past 100 years. This is unbelievable, because this only tells me that the speed is there, but in order for that speed to be there, there has to be a lot of players, and those players have to act in unison in order for this change not to become a chaotic change. So the next steps in the 10 years cannot be just handled in chaos. So we need to bring some order there, and that order only comes if we join hands. And climate crisis that we really talk a lot about, because I really believe in, at the moment, this is not anymore the time that we sugarcoat what is happening in the world. So the climate crisis is a race I believe we still can win. And United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres also believes so. But we also know that no corner of the globe is immune. So the climate change is over here, and the consequences can be devastating. So the temperatures are rising, we see natural disasters, we see extreme weathers, economic disruption is over here, the food and water insecurity has already been at the level, so you would remember from Syria. Conflict and terrorism can be impacted by this any moment. So the business as usual that we have always been looking into is not good enough. So that's really not good enough. And because the cost of this is reaching irreversible highs. So we believe it's really time for bold collective action. And bold collective action calls for open innovation. So the innovation function at Arçelik, we prefer to call Garage Innovation Hub. We call it a hub because we try to bring in a lot of partners that can work together over here. So we really want to embrace, and we do embrace, open innovation, because in order for that bold collective action to find a body, we really need to take that seriously. So open innovation, in short, or very short, it's a paradigm which assumes that companies can and should use external ideas as well as internal ideas. Easier said than done, but it is possible. And for a long time, a lot of the companies have been using it. And especially on the line of sustainability, we know that that one calls desperately for open innovation. So some of the examples, the Hack to Normal Sustainability, I will give you some more information. Every year, we run a program, an innovation program that's called The Next Big Story. We try to find out what will be the next big story that we are going to communicate to the world, that we're going to implement in our products. And this very year, it was on sustainability as well. And we tried to cross-pollinate that innovation program as much as we could. So let me now jump to Hack to Normal Sustainability that we have run this year. So Hack to Normal Sustainability program, as you can see, there were, that was not only an ideathon. So that was a 60-hour long weekend boot camp, so to say, But within that program, we also wanted to incorporate a lot of inspirational talks. Those inspirational talks were not just because we were looking for PR impact. We were looking for inspiration for the people who were going to ideate. So we brought in our, for example, trade partners. We brought in our media partners. We brought in companies from within our domain or from adjacent domains, because the problems are common. We were talking about water management. We were talking about climate change. We were talking about circular economy. So these are not problems that only Arçelik has to address. These are problems of the humanity at the moment. So that is why it was extremely important for us to give the participants who were going to be taking part in the ideathon to get an inspiration from multiple domains regarding the challenges they were handling. Just to give you some numbers, what it meant. So it was just a 60-hour-long program. So what impact could it have brought? So we got 700 individual applications, actually a little more, 702, I think, to be precise. We got 51 startup applications. We established 94 teams out of these people. We actually mixed and merged. So this is also where cross-pollination happens when you bring in diversity. And we were lucky enough to see that we had pretty good share of male and female proportions. We had applications from 70 countries, as I said at the very beginning of the webinar. And we had 60 pitches in the end, which was a good success because we started with 94 teams, we ended with 60. In such ideathons, it is considered pretty successful ratio. And we had 78 partners, and the partners were extremely engaged. So they really took part in these 60 hours of the ideathon, and they were mentoring those participants. They were exchanging messages with them, supporting them along the way. So in the end, we actually have created a pretty large community. So the Slack channel is still active. And this was the hackathon where we have seen the most number of messages exchanged. So we had more than 9,000 messages on Slack. And still, there are some people going in there and checking out what's happening. So this was a weekend, but a weekend full of a lot of amazing ideas. So we have done a post-processing of these 60 pitches. And we have seen with data that some of the work that we are doing internally in the company, in our labs, is getting validated by those people who were ideating here. So we have seen ideas coming up along the similar lines. Of course, we have seen some outstanding novel ideas as well. But we could also see that this ideathon was a very good way of validating. So the validation episode of the innovation process was also taking charge with such a hackathon as well. So I also want to give you a little bit of understanding how we approach innovation. So a little bit about a process, but I didn't want to show you a process chart. So this is something we have been crafting very recently. Actually, this is not the final version because we always have this iterative approach when we're coming up with even with our own ways of working. So GIH stands for Garage Innovation Hub. Garage Innovation Hub has a toolbox, and we wanted to actually cluster our tools and try to see which tools we use in what sort of innovation programs. So if you look at it here, you can see 4 quadrants, and the 4 quadrants actually you can see in action verbs what we do. So number 1 is collaborate, because without collaboration, you don't get ideas. And if you look at a typical innovation process, it starts with ideation and ends with commercialization. So the ideation stage never gives you good results if there is not enough collaboration. So we always start with collaborate. And it's not enough, of course. It's not enough to bring in diversity together, but you need to know your context. So you need to understand what you are building on, what you're ideating on. And you need to have the muscles to frame the solutions. And of course, in the end, you need to deliver. You need to realize the offering. So in our toolbox, on the collaborate side, we focus heavily on community building because a strong community and diverse one gives you cross-pollinated ideas. We scout startups for various purposes for different programs. We actually take care of, in these collaborations, we try to pump in the knowledge as well. So it's extremely important that for the collaboration to happen properly, people need to come to the similar level of understanding in the innovation process, or some basic tools that you use over there. And of course, we need to have in the toolbox the skill set of workshop facilitation and co-creation. In knowing the context, we do a lot of consumer research and analysis, and we do some trend and technology scanning. Over here, in the recent years, we started working with startups. We started also doing quite good amount of social listening. We know that data is out there and it's public. And in order to know your context, of course, it's the best way is to go out there and be on the field and talk to the end user of the innovation. But even before that, doing desktop research on your own is not necessary anymore. You can actually use several tools to get the data out, for example, from social media, which we have seen as very useful in order to frame our context. And once you have the right community with the right toolset brought together and you have identified your context, you can ideate and you can frame your ideas. You can afterwards start framing the solutions. And here comes the incubation and acceleration part. We create proper narratives for our solutions. So we use quite often the working backwards methods to think about how would we talk about it if this had become news somewhere. And additionally, of course, as a result, it makes our life so much easier to design and develop the concept. And additionally, of course, if it's a digital product, we do quite a lot of software and hardware design. And in order to realize the offering, we do have in our toolbox several ways of prototyping opportunities. We do have some large 3D printers. We can prototype things quite fast, but also we do prototype digitally. And we do the idea and concept validation, going out to the field and using different methods. And of course, we need pretty good business understanding. We do a lot of cost business analysis over here. One thing that I would like to share is that the process requires several tools from each box, and it's an iterative one. And each program may use and focus on some specific boxes more. And the process is never linear. So the process can be like quite convoluted, I would say, but the toolbox always helps. So you may start with collaboration at the beginning, but you may even end up with collaboration in the end when you're realizing an offering, for example, if that's the co-innovation product. So just to give you an idea how we use our toolbox. This is my team, not everybody, but the ones that I could get into the picture. We really strongly believe that we stand for this allegory, dare, connect, and venture. So we want to dare and fail sometimes, and come back and reiterate. We do things in a connected manner, and we really venture out and try things. This has been a vision board that we have created recently, which I really love, because without this, I think we cannot be innovative and we cannot come up with anything novel. And people have created it themselves for the people, by the people, and of course for the business and for the planet. And we strongly believe that if we don't make any mistakes, we're losing the game. And as Master Yoda said, we should play a different game and we want to stay in the game. So I have come to the last words, and I would very much be happy to keep in touch with you. So this is more my QR code on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to connect. And if you have any questions, I would be happy to hold chats offline as well. Before we end, I would like to be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you so much, Pinar, for this really great presentation. It was quite interesting to learn about what you have been up to at Arçelik and your own background. So, I mean, I already have a bunch of questions in my head, But I'd like to open the floor for questions from people who are attending. But I'd like to kick off the Q&A session and ask you, you mentioned at the very beginning when you were talking about some of the open innovation practices that you were doing that there are some pitfalls to using open innovation. And I just wanted to ask, what are those pitfalls, and what do you think we can do to avoid those pitfalls?
Well, there are pitfalls, yes, and I really think that people should talk about this and be aware of this, because it's not enough to just go out there and scream, yes, I'm ready to collaborate and let's cooperate, co-innovate. It's easier said than done, especially in organizations like ours, which is huge. That's why I wanted to show you the complexity at the beginning. So most often there are two pitfalls that make the open innovation either difficult or impossible. So what makes it most of the cases difficult is the good old not invented here syndrome. So very often, and we still see it, by the way, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, these companies have been established with blood and sweat and tears, and people have been working very hard in their labs, especially all these R&D engineers. And being an engineer myself, I know that engineers really fall in love with their products, and you work very hard for them, and you think that nobody can do it better, and but it's not true. And within your own lab, your capacity is very limited. And once people see the first good examples of collaborative results, then this mindset starts fading away. But usually at the very start, this is the first wall that you hit with open innovation. So just to give you examples, you run a hackathon, amazing ideas come out. So people come to you with like really working prototypes of things, and you say that, hey, let's take this and get inspired in the least. So we don't really have to use it, but it's inspirational. So usually the very first, the knee-jerk reaction, especially from old R&D teams, is like, we've done this before. It's already in our pipelines. It's in the roadmap. That's wonderful. It can be in the roadmap, but open innovation does not mean that you have to take it as it is and replace your own with that. Open innovation means that you take it, maybe blend it with your solution, or you don't take it as it is, but you sit and discuss with the team who has come up with that idea and see what parts you can take or what you can come up with as a totally new novel idea. So once you start taking it further and massage the people with this approach, then you actually resolve the blockage. But this is the number one difficulty, I would say. Number two is more on the processes and resources side of a business, because large companies are built quite lean. So because you need to make sure that the company runs on only the right amount of resources. By resources, I mean people, budgets, tools. When you start bringing in a lot of ideas from outside, then the company might be like a deer in headlights, so you may actually get this, again, knee-jerk reaction from these, I would call them the most important support functions, like legal, like procurement, like the R&Ds who will need to do the tech due diligence on the new ideas that you're bringing in. They may just say that, hey, we don't have resources for this. We don't have bandwidth for this. So that's why it needs to be introduced in small portions. So you cannot just say that now I'm going full open innovation and I'm going to bring in 1,000 new ideas every three months. And then we will have to look into all of them and assess them and make products and services out of it. It will not work. So this, I believe, are the two difficulties and pitfalls, so which can be managed, but we have to be aware so that we can manage them.
Definitely good, very good points. I think very relatable in many other fields as well, in terms of collaborating and ideation in general. We have a couple of questions that are streaming into the Q&A chat box. The first one is around Arçelik's commercial strategy. So what you mentioned around profits, planet, people. So if profit maximization is no longer Arçelik's main commercial strategy, how do you decide what the acceptable level of profit is to satisfy your optimizing of the targets?
That's a pretty good question. I would say that profit maximization is not the sole strategy, so to say. But in order for us to be profitable in the mid-run and long run, we know that the planet aspect has to be taken into consideration. So nowadays, when we are setting out for a target, cost up scope in an innovation program is not the only objective. So we also look at whether it has a people and planet impact. So, and anything that doesn't go through this criteria checking is not coming into our roadmaps. So it's actually as simple as that. Of course, it's not very straightforward to explain. So within our core business, we have a lot of legacy stuff that we're still producing and we will be producing. And there are still a very good number of people out there who will not be able to afford certain technologies which are too expensive for them for the moment. So we will need to carry on doing some good old business, good old way. But the new way of business is coming in, balancing out the equation. So it's not a very easy answer. I would not, because it's not a very simple business that we're running. You know, we're in B2B business, we're in B2C business, we're in direct to consumer business, we do door-to-door sales. You know, it's extremely complex. So I cannot just say that there is one commercial strategy that cuts it all. But what we keep in mind is nowadays that is this good for the people and the planet? So our ESG targets are extremely important because we know that we will not be profitable if we don't take care of that aspect of the business life.
And thanks, Pinar. There's another question that's related to this previous question. How do you actually measure the impact of the open innovation work that you do, that you apply to your projects, ideas within Arçelik, but also your additional activities that you've been organizing?
We have a few KPIs. I like data. I'm an engineer. I like data and I like to measure things. So I would like to see results. First of all, of course, we look at it along the innovation process. Very simplistically, innovation process starts with ideation. It goes on with validation, then you do incubation and commercialization. So the first KPI we always look at is whether we have commercialized anything, because that is the very first question you get in the business. If you're in a for-profit world, then that's the very first question you have to be able to answer. So we always want to make sure that we can commercialize things. We don't have to commercialize it on our own, but at least we have to have, for example, a commercialization program that can commercialize some efforts. So this is one KPI that we look into. Of course, we also look into the number of ideas. So number of ideas gives you a very good hint. And then you look at the pipeline. So X many ideas are coming in, and why many of them get validated, and many less get incubated, and maybe one gets commercialized. So we just try to always look at that pipeline and keep it balanced, so to say. So this is number one thing that we look into. And the other thing that we recently started measuring is whether open innovation is impacting time to market. Because if you do it solely with your own muscles and brain, then it takes X years. But if you co-innovate, or if you actually do it through open innovation, does it really improve the time that you get things to the market? So this is another KPI that I really like looking at.
Thank you so much, Pinar. I have one question. As you know, we are currently running a Women Innovators program at Boost, where we support women-led startups and nonprofits that are working towards leveraging the power of technologies for addressing gender inequalities, but also creating opportunities for women and girls in the region and across. So in this context, I wanted to ask, what are some of the challenges that women face in innovation, in the innovation field particular? And, perhaps what is your advice? You have been working as a software engineer and in this field for a very long time, with a great experience and background.
Well, I like this question because we don't very much talk about this, right? So it's the challenge is there in general. It's not specific only to innovation. So there is a clear gender inequality. So there is a gender gap in pretty much everywhere. And this is one thing that we need to admit. So where the representation is not the same between men and women, the challenges are always there. So this is number one thing. In innovation, that there are some KPIs that you may talk about. Well, number one is the number of patents, for example. Still, the number of patents is so much lower that are filed by women. Nobody really knows why. We're looking into the reasons. We try to boost it inside Arçelik. So we have a lot of women engineers who are actually filing patents. So there they are making the records. It is possible, actually. It just needs a boost. So this is my opinion over this. But this is a result of the gender inequality as a result of the overall statistics, I believe. The numbers are bettering, but the numbers already speak for themselves. So I think according to the most recent statistics, only 17% of the patents were filed by women. And even though it is rising, I think the annual rate of increase was about 3.5%. Still, it's very much less, but it is very much in line with the normal statistics we have at hand. So the number of women in STEM is much less. The number of women in women filing patents is very much less. I think the challenge is that gender stereotypes are imposed on us, and I think we buy into them. And when the numbers are not equal, so when the representation is not at the same level, it's very easy to give in. So I don't know if you have seen, but there is a lot of academic studies that actually prove that when an innovation is by a man, it's considered novel, whereas when an innovation is by a woman, even though they are on the same lines, that is considered as a result of a lot of effort. So when an innovator is a man is considered ingenious. When an innovator is a woman is considered diligent. So, and I think where we fall short, and including myself, I do that quite often, because we're most of the time outnumbered, we actually buy into the gender stereotypes. So, and the result shows, because if you look at, for example, the startup ecosystem, the women-founded startups, unfortunately, don't find as much funds. And well, I can speak very easily. It was hard for me to find funds. I really didn't have to ask for them. I don't know, I think I even thought sometimes that, well, asking for it was not for me. So I was not raised like that. But I think we need to go out there and put ourselves in the same shoes like the men are wearing, because we're wearing the same shoes and we have the same level of rights, for example, to ask for funds when we have an innovative idea. And I think this is where the main difference comes. There is a general bias, but I think the problem starts when we buy into that bias and impacted by that gender stereotyping. I don't know, I said too many things in several consequent sentences. I hope you really got my point. But I think you really see the numbers in the funding figures. I mean, as someone who has suffered from that long ago, but I also feel my share in it because I could have done better. And I really believe as women, we can do better in that domain. The numbers should not discourage us. Actually, they should encourage us. You can see that there is great room for improvement.
Thank you so much, Pinar. really insightful. We have one more question, which is that came in, that is about Arçelik's. What is Arçelik's approach in what are the activities that you're doing across the company? And of course, I mean, you have so many subsidiaries and brands, so perhaps you can focus on what are the activities that you're doing to minimize environmental impact and supporting, you know, the planet.
Inside the company, we do a lot of things. Just to give you a very small example, very small things. By the way, the thing we believe is that what is the most impactful, and we have seen it from experience, is the stuff that you invest the least, but impacts at scale. For example, right before pandemic, actually a year before pandemic, we totally disallowed in all of the offices these plastic bottles of water. So we have installed everywhere water filters, and everybody had to have their own bottles, and we needed to drink our own bottle. During the pandemic, we had to actually let it go away because it was not hygienic, but sharing the water filters. But this was, for example, one of the very few things. At our production facilities, of course, we take a lot of measures which have great impact. So we're using quite a lot of solar panel renewables. We have been renewing our internal infrastructure systems in order to replace, because even though you put down some investment up front, it actually comes back to you in a pretty short time, and that impacts the planet. Additionally, actually, my team has been working on a very recent product. I mean, when I call it a product, it sounds actually very dry, but it is, I would say, we have been working with some behavioral scientists. We've been working with United Nations endorsed carbon footprint calculator program team. We're working with a startup based in the Nordics again. So we're going to be launching that product actually pretty soon. So this is to target internally first our employees and a lot of other big companies' employees, to create awareness of climate change, first giving them a chance to calculate their carbon footprint, and then put them on a challenge journey, which is gamified, starting off with learning, first of all, what is climate crisis, and then taking actions. And as they take actions, they will be getting some certificates along the way, they will be getting some badges. And in the end, we will also give them a chance to offset their carbon footprint if they want to. So this is, for example, one of the initiatives that we have been working on for a year now, and we'll be launching it somewhere in August this year. So we have a lot of other things going on, but these are just a few examples.
Thank you so much for the overview. And maybe we'll take one more question as we're running out of time. I mean, you showed us kind of your approach to open innovation, how you go about that within the Garage Hub. How can, for example, smaller companies like startups, SMEs, but also nonprofits work with open innovation? What is needed to successfully adapt this practice?
I think the easiest way is to acknowledge that it exists, and then you approach to those who are already implementing open innovation. There are a lot of very good examples of open innovation. Arçelik is not the only example, our Garage Innovation Hub. I mean, you have seen that already 8 years ago, Elon Musk announced that they opened all their patents to the other companies, all their patents in EV chargers, for example. Or Lego is one of the companies that I admire a lot. They have been innovating with their consumers for a long time. So P&G is also another good example. Unilever is doing that. So I think for smaller companies, the easiest gateway is to side with some large companies who are already doing this and follow up those open innovation challenges that are out there, because there are so many of them and very good examples.
Was muted. Thank you so much, Pinar. Thank you so much for your time. There are some additional questions, but we won't be able to get to them. But Thank you so much for your time, for sharing your insights and your experience. It was very insightful, and I'm sure for the rest of the group that's joined us today as well. We have a lot of compliments streaming into the chat. So thank you for everyone that joined us today for a talk. We're going to end. We'll be sharing the recording once we have finished this talk. We'll share it this week. And stay on the watch for our next Boost Talks that are upcoming next month. And we're so happy to have kicked off this new edition with Pinar. So thank you everyone for participating.
Thank you so much, Svetla and the team. Pleasure to meet. Take good care. Cheers.
Thank you again. Bye, everyone.